There's always been a constant desire to want to be better, which has a double edged sword, right? You are the solution, but you're also the problem.
Tulsa
No,
Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
So we're here today on Tulsa Talks with Corey Martin. Corey Martin is a realtor friend of mine that I met at Toastmasters and a network marketing group. Corey's a great guy that cares about people, and he's focused on his personal growth and helping others personally grow. Corey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about how you got to be more passionate about self-growth, your development into taking that step of, yeah, I want something different than I've had in the past, because most people have that in their background of what makes you tick.
Right. There's always been a constant desire to want to be better, which has a double edged sword, right? You are the solution, but you're also the problem.
No, everybody else is the problem, and I'm the only solution that exists.
Some would think that. Some would think that. And those people end up on a performance enhancing improvement plan, right? Those people end up getting laid off and get fired. No, I mean, I'm getting off on a sidetrack there, but
No, we're here
you're
to have fun, have a regular conversation, and where's the rabbit hole leading?
right, right.
So what makes you tick, man?
I enjoy helping people realize that they have everything they need right here. It's a difficult world to live in. It's difficult to, I mean, we all have bad days. We all have our own struggles. You don't know what anybody else's story is. You really don't.
Unless you listen to them.
Let's use driving, for example. When was the last time you got cut off and you're like,
Oh, no. I never do that. I take a lot softer approach. I go fast around them and I brake check them.
I do that too.
Jokingly said.
I say that I cut my teeth driving, living in Houston, Texas, and no offense to anybody in the 918, but just get out of the way. You're in the way. There's a reason why the speed limit is there, and you're not going it, so get out of the way.
So how do we self-grow through that, Corey?
All right. So when was the last time you got cut off and the emotions immediately boiled up? Rah, 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 rah. They come up almost instantly.
Actually, I want to help you see where I am in my life. I actually cut somebody off accidentally years ago, and he was nice enough to pull up beside me and said, I know you didn't see me, but you cut me off. And I just wanted to make sure that you're safe for everybody else. And that spawned thought that that's how I could live life.
Hmm.
And that's probably been 14 years ago. And it's still in the back of my mind. How do I appreciate those other people on the road? They're busy. They get distracted. I need to be aware of that. I need to make sure that those people don't harm me and that I don't harm them.
Yeah.
And maybe raise their attention to, hey, man, softly check yourself.
I like that. Reminds me of driver's ed when the coach, of course, because I went to a small town, so driver's ed is taught by a coach, but coach for driver's ed told us when you see an ambulance, you pull over. And his analogy was, what if that's your mom in that ambulance? Would you get out of the way? Would you want that ambulance to go as fast as possible to get where it needs to go? Yeah, you would. Get out of the way. So take that same thought about the ambulance to that person who just cut you off. What if she's 9 months pregnant and having contractions and trying to get to the hospital? What if fill in the blank? You don't know their story.
So how do we get back on track with self-growth? Because a lot of people do need that encouragement on the roads to be kind to one another and to have a different thought process when something happens. But what is your
little things?
Yeah.
It's the little things.
Yeah.
It's having grace with yourself. Starts with yourself, right? So you don't know what that other person's story is that just cut you off. What if you're the person who just cut yourself off?
What do you mean cut yourself off?
We all shoot ourselves in the foot all the time. We all self-sabotage. your self-talk in particular. I can't do this. I have no idea what I'm doing setting up a podcast studio. I have no idea what I'm doing with a talk show or anything like that. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. You could let that negative self-talk completely sabotage everything you've already created.
You know what I did? Said, I don't know, but I know that some people do know. And I reached out to people that did know and I allowed them to do what they do
That's right.
so that I could do what I do because I have enjoyed having meaningful conversations for all of my life. My wife actually realized or learned things about her grandparents and her parents and her brother after she was 25 years old when I met her. And at 30 years old, somewhere between 25 and 30 years old, she was like, I had no idea, Craig, that these things were part of their life.
Hmm.
And I learned them through a 30-minute conversation that I saw you have.
Hmm.
I love healing or helping people share their passion because it's like being at a rock star or rock concert for me when I get somebody on their passion and I can allow them to release that energy. Oh my God, that is just so fulfilling to me.
Like, yeah.
I know my purpose. My purpose is to listen to others and love them the way they need to be loved.
Yeah. It's great.
So, self growth.
I think, isn't there a saying where you live two lives? I don't remember who said this, but you live two lives. The second one starts when you figure out what your first one's about, right? And the whole purpose of that is finding your purpose. Once you determine what your purpose is, then you can truly live your life out. I'm 40, turning 41 this month. I have for several years gone down the self improvement, self growth pathway for no other reason than I knew that I needed something more. I didn't exactly know what I was looking for, but I know, and I inherently knew the whole time that if I pour into myself, all those answers will come eventually,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Make myself the best person that I can possibly be. So my cup is full so I can pour into others. Let's take that in tandem. My whole life, people call me when stuff hits the fan. I can't tell you why. I can tell you why now, but I couldn't at the time. I couldn't up until recently identify why. I have always been the person people come to when they don't know what to do next, when they're stuck. Man, this whole big thing just happened, blah, 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 blah. What should I do? I don't know why you're calling me. I mean, I remember saying that to my older brother one time. I was in my 20s. He called me. He's 7 years older than me. He's a doctor. He's also an engineer, very, very bright person. Somebody as a younger brother I've always looked up to. And I remember thinking in my mid 20s, like, why are you calling me? Like, why? You got a whole lot more worldly experience. You're a whole lot smarter than me. Why do I have the answers that you can't figure out?
Yeah. And he probably knew a lot of people that were smart as well, that were surrounding him, but he called you.
Right. Yeah. You go to a university like the University of Tulsa, and you're going to be surrounded by those extremely bright people for sure. I have found the ability to let people talk, ask a few questions, let them lead them to their own answer. Lead them to their own answer, I think is the true definition right there. Help them to realize that the problems that I have their own solutions. All of those solutions are already in here. I don't need to go look out there. I don't need to look in the bottle for that. I don't need to go look in a book for that. I don't need to go talk to 1,000 other people to find the answer. If I just sit in my own quiet, I can find the answers myself.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I don't even know what the questions are, let alone being able to get to the answers. And that's why we're doing this, is to help me understand more by
sure.
gaining a better perspective of all walks of life,
For sure.
hopefully rounding me out so that I can have those questions for myself so that I can receive those answers.
Yeah.
And was it you or somebody else in Toastmasters within the last few months that said people remember 85% of the questions that they answer for themselves and 15% of the information that's given to them?
That was me.
There you go.
Right. If I tell you how to do ABC, 15% chance that you'll do ABC. If I lead you through questions to where you answer those questions and come up with your own ABC, 85% chance that you will accomplish A, B, C. Coaching is, in essence, what that is. I have found a purpose, and I mentioned it to you before with the ACT method, the awareness, clarity, transformation. This is a step-by-step process that I've finally articulated and put it on paper, but it's what I've always done. You have an issue. What is that issue? You need to become aware of the issue. That's your first step in transforming and getting unstuck. What is that issue? But think about it in a simple terms like a mechanic. You've got a noise going on in your truck. You take it to a mechanic. Well, the mechanic needs to hear that noise before they can identify what the issue is.
Yeah, 90% of the time when I take my vehicle to the mechanic and it's making a noise, it stops when I get there.
We've had the same conversation. Yeah. That's like the seat belt in the back seat of my wife's car that sometimes doesn't work, but it works every time I take it to the dealership.
So anyway, bring awareness to yourself of whatever situation it is, mechanic, a noise, they hear it.
Right. Need to be aware of what it is that's stopping you. For most of us, it's our self-talk. Boiling that down even farther, most of the time it's fear or it's reluctancy, which is still based out of fear. I can't do this because I don't know, fill in the blank, or I am not trained in that.
How do you live a life wide open if you have fear holding you back?
What are you ultimately afraid of? I mean, what?
The biggest failure that you can have, I think, is to not try.
That's right. I agree. I think most of our fears that we come up with are never going to come true. In real estate, I have this conversation often. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay, you want to sell your house and you want to list it by this date, whatever we're talking about. What's the worst thing that can happen when it comes to selling your house?
It's not going to sell.
Okay, cool. What's the best thing that's going to happen?
It's going to sell.
How quickly?
Who cares?
Right.
As fast as it can.
As fast as it can. So now that you know what the worst case scenario is and the best case scenario is, throw that out of the window because real life happens in between all of that. That's reality. It's going to be anything in between that. So now that you've identified what the worst possible outcome could be, guess what? That's not going to happen. So now you can move on. Get that fear out of your way and just move on forward. So that's the awareness part of it, is becoming aware of what the issue is. For most of us, it's our own self-talk. We are in our own way, right? I don't want to do this because
enemy?
why?
Or could we be our own worst enemy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Think of it like this. Would you talk to your wife the same way you negatively talk to yourself?
Yeah, she's taught me after 34 years that's not a good idea.
Exactly. Or maybe another way to say it, especially if you have younger kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. Would I talk to my 8-year-old the same way I belittle myself sometimes? Hell no, strong hell no. I would not have that conversation.
Encouraging and guiding is the best thing to do for people.
So why can't we do that to ourselves?
But not yourself.
So why can't we say, hey, Corey, man, I know you wanted to work out 5 days this week and you only got 4 in. Good job, man. You got 4 in. That's awesome. Great job. That's how I would say it to my 8-year-old. But instead I go, man, what a slacker. You wanted to do 5 days. You only got 4 in. Why can't you get that 5th one? Get your shit together and make it happen, And that's not how you need to talk. So identifying your own self-talk is a big part of that awareness. Second phase of this is the clarity. So what do you ultimately want? What's the purpose here? What are you trying to do? Let's go back to the real estate thing. You want to sell your house. Okay, that's ultimately what you want. The clarity behind the goal is, okay, you want to sell your house. And then we lead into the third phase by attaching to the second phase, the transformation phase.
Yeah. How clear should your vision be before you, or your plan be? So the vision is like the awareness.
Right.
And then clarity is the action plan.
That's right.
And then transformation is the byproduct of those added together.
Absolutely.
Or multiplied for exponential growth.
Absolutely.
So if we're on the clarity phase, I know a lot of people that are hesitant to move because of negative self-talk after the largest companies in the world make revisions on a regular basis. So how do we balance that, Corey?
Did you know that Lamborghini started out as a tractor company? There you go. Speaking of revisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Apple was coming to my mind how they send these annoying little things out every week or two, right? You got to update, you got to update, you got to update.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were perfect, there wouldn't be any need in an update.
That's
they were good enough to move forward. Have
That's
you seen that in people's lives where there's self-doubt and they've not? made a plan good enough? Or how about moving forward when you don't have a plan somewhat in place?
I think you fall into one of those two categories. You either build the plane on the way down or you never take off because you never perfected your plane. That's another one of the awareness issues. That's another one of those negative self-talks is perfectionism. That eats people alive. How many times do you wait until things are perfect before you go forward? Uh, I remember when
Crippling, what is that word? Crippling
anxiety
anxiety. Yeah.
or analysis paralysis.
That's it. Analysis paralysis.
I'm reminded of my wife's grandfather. We'd been married 2 or 3 years, and like any typical grandfather to a upper 20s grandkid, when you gonna have some kids, blah blah blah.
It sounds like me and my daughter right
we're
now, man.
both
She's
like,
31, and I'm like, come on now,
quit
get a
asking.
relationship.
We're professionals. We just got married. We want to live our lives first. And he said, if you wait until you're ready, you'll never do it. And he's 100% right. When we conceived our first child, it wasn't a purposeful thing. So we weren't trying or anything. At that time, we lived on this like kind of a horseshoe of a neighborhood. We lived on the corner and we went on a walk and we were all the way to the other side. And my wife hadn't said a word. It's only about a 10-minute walk. My wife likes to talk. So I was, my mind is already turning like, oh, shoot, she's going to.
What kind of trouble am I in now?
Right. Like, am I getting a divorce or like, what did I do? What did she do? What's going on? Why isn't she talking? And she said, I'm pregnant. And I said, cool. She said, that's it? That's all you got to say is cool? And I said, yeah, I mean, we got 9 months to figure it out. We're married. We both have jobs. We have a decent income. It's not like this kid's going to grow up hungry and not knowing where home is. We're in a better position to have a baby than a lot of people who have babies. We'll figure it out. And she was like, like all distraught that I didn't
flip.
Yeah.
She expected a flipping Corey.
It is what it is, man. We'll figure it out. And he's been the greatest blessing of my life. He's given me my purpose. So I think I took a little left-hand turn there.
No. We're talking about clarity, business plans, and things that actually pop up in life that are not planned out, but how you overcome them. I think is what that rabbit trail was.
Right.
So awareness, clarity, transformation.
That's right. So in the clarity part, right, you want to identify what your goal is. What are you ultimately doing? And then break that down into small little micro actions. Keep doing those daily because that builds momentum. Best example I can give for that is weight loss, right? You want to lose some weight. I want to lose 10 pounds. Let's say I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, how are you going to do that? Give yourself a daily goal for a month and then check back in a month and tell me, have you lost that 10 pounds? If you didn't, maybe you need to dial in your goal a little bit. Or maybe you need to be honest with yourself and see how well you consistently did your things.
Or reevaluate and see if you really want that.
Exactly.
Because every time that I've really wanted anything, my actions followed that desire.
That's right. Passion tends to fuel whatever project that you're going on when you truly, if it's something you can't stop thinking about, that's probably something you should be pursuing.
Yeah.
At least until you're ready to stop thinking about it.
Yes. We've had people in here that were ex-addicts, ex-prisoners, and that sort of thing. And they were definitely focused on doing what they were doing, what their purpose was at that time in life. And the people that we've had in here are transforming society by helping other people that are where they were.
Yeah.
So they were equipped by attaching themselves to that passion, even though it was in a seemingly wrong direction, to be equipped to be able to help others that go down that road as well. And I call that equipped to love.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a little different area of life or different lifestyle here. We're talking about awareness of whatever it is, clarity, actionable steps, weight loss, maybe what actionable steps you had in that clarity for having a baby. Or maybe it was an actionable step of how you're going to sell your house.
Right.
Are they similar?
I think they can all be boiled down to similar things. Yes. Similar step-by-step process of how do you uncover what's the issue? How do you create a plan to get yourself on the other side of that issue? I don't want to say win or break through, because some things just don't need to be. Having a baby is not something you break through, right? But have your awareness, have your plan, and then follow that plan until you're transformed into that next level or become that next thing. You have to become the person you are going to be in the next chapter of your life before that next chapter can manifest.
Yeah. My cousin said it kind of like this while I was in high school, and I'll never forget it. He said, Craig, if you want to get paid more, I was working with him, then you have to be more. You don't get paid to be something, you get paid because you are something. So, whatever we are attaching ourselves in life can be looked at as a resource of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So, therefore, we are transitioned into that different state of being. So, we have that resource, so we get to walk in that resource.
Yeah, I like it. We are that resource.
And what's amazing to me is that we are that resource and we've been placed in the place of a resource with other resources around us, that each one of us have our own guardrails. If we respect our guardrails and other people's guardrails, we can flow together
Yeah.
right beside each other and almost inside of each other,
Right.
of a synergistic approach to living an abundant life.
That's right.
And the abundant life is not necessarily talking about money.
Right. For sure.
So we're talking about the act, awareness, then
Clarity.
and then transformation.
Oh,
So we're kind of talking about stepping into transformation now.
right.
Is that
Right.
right?
Well, all of this is part of what I call the unstuck method. It's a process to go through when I'm stuck. I don't know what to do next. And that can look in so many different ways. I can correlate that to so many different things, right? This in life, you get to a point in business in particular, you get to a point where I don't know what to do next. Well, cool. Become aware of what the issue is, have some clarity around it. What do you ultimately want? Create your steps, your micro actions, create your momentum to create your own transformation, to get out of the unstuck. I mean, at the end of the day, it all boils down to action, right? Action. Do something. You're stuck. Well, the best way to get unstuck is to move. Think about a car that's stuck. Best way to get unstuck is to move that car, whether you got to push from the behind or pull it from in the front, whatever you got to do, you got to move that vehicle to get it unstuck. Same thing. Action creates results. Action is the antidote to anxiety. The reason why you're stuck is because you're anxious, because you're afraid, because you're not doing something.
Now, be honest with us, Corey. Do you ever feel uncomfortable as you're taking these steps of action?
Absolutely. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think we sat here 3 or 4 weeks ago and I had that conversation, and we can, when the cameras are not rolling, we can dive into a little bit more on a deep level of what that meant to me. But absolutely, there's throughout this whole process, I see a very clear vision at the end. I think I've said this to you before. I'm an A to Z person. I can see Z. I'm on A. I'm not really too worried about the B through Y, but that's where life happens, is that B through Y. So figuring out all those other steps,
Yeah.
And trust, just trust that I am, trust that pull, trust God, whatever you want to call it, trust the universe, whatever you want to call it, just trust that positive feeling inside of you that says that's where you're supposed to put your foot next.
What if there's an anxious part of you that's not positive? What do you do with that? Have you ever gotten there? What do you do with that?
You can just sit there and sulk in it, let that freeze you and not do anything about it, or try to dissect that anxiety. Why are you anxious?
Have you ever switched gears where you're anxious about something and you didn't have the answer, so you went and did something else?
Mhm.
I've done that. Just go to sleep, go take a shower,
Yeah.
go play ball.
Come back to it later.
And what's amazing to me is a lot of times it comes to me later instead of me trying to press the issue.
That's the thing right there. It came to you. Instead of you trying to figure it out with your own brain, you let it come to you.
Right. Yeah. We're talking about dating the other day with a man on the podcast, and we were talking about how you can repulse things from yourself if you actively pursue them too strongly. So when I
Yeah.
actively
Yeah.
pursue something too strongly, uh, glad I was real cool when I met Rita. Love you, girl. Anyway, um, when I was dating her, I we moved pretty fast, but we moved in conjunction with each other.
Sure.
We were dancing.
Right.
We were learning each other.
Right.
And I proposed that an idea, a vision, a life path, you're dating inside yourself of this balance, orchestrated dance where you need to have that balance where you're receiving information and you're letting it come through your life and you're doing this. And then, whoa, I don't have the answer. What do I do now?
Einstein's the one who said the only reason for time is so everything doesn't happen all at once. Take the time for that to come to you.
Yeah.
A whole lot easier said than done, though.
You the man. I know you can do it. I know you can encourage other people to do it. That's why we're here today, is to encourage people to live beyond what it is that they know and to know that beyond exists.
That's right. Get
Corey.
out of your own way. Get out of your own way. You have all the answers you need. And when you don't, take the time to let them come to you. Letting them come to you might look like having several conversations with different people in your community. Is you made a comment earlier about each of us having our, as you were saying it, I was thinking each one of us has our own superpower. Your superpower is not the same as mine, and it doesn't need to
I'm
be.
glad it's not.
Exactly. So that way we can share, I can share my superpower with you and propel you forward. You can do the same with me. And guess what? We're both farther because of it. Or a spoke on a wheel, right? Not every spoke on the wheel makes everything work. It's all synergistic. It all works together. It all works together.
It all works.
It all works together. We all are a community for a reason.
Including the homeless and the addicts
Mhm.
and the elected officials and everybody in between.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that I'm a part of this community. I'm glad that I got to know you, Corey.
Heck yeah. Looking forward to seeing where this all goes.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?